and unfortunately they looked very pale, very injured, it was bad.
Now, you went there to actually rescue your sister, right? And what did your sister tell you about the situation?
Well, I mean, again, she was very frightened when she came out. She was crying. All the other students were crying. And the thing she told me was that it really started when she heard gunshots and she heard screams on the intercom. The intercom came on and there were screams. And, the school went on lockdown. And based on what she said, she was in art class and they were hiding in the closet, in a tiny closet, all bundled up. And they were hearing screams, and it was horrible.
And earlier you told me you find this situation to be disgusting, that anyone would do anything like this.
It truly is. It's sickening. It's horrible that some people, think that they can do this stuff, and unfortunately it's a growing trend here, in the United States, and it's just horrible.
And again, you also told me that state police actually told your sister and her class to close their eyes. Describe that scene to me.
Correct. When they were leaving the schools, the school has really one big hallway. It's just shaped like a square. And when they were leaving the school, the state troopers and the FBI or whoever was there, they were telling all the children to hold hands and close their eyes until they were outside. So I mean, obviously, what was in there must have been very gruesome. And my sister said what she saw was just police everywhere. Police with guns in every corner. So.
A terrible.
We just ran like every other parent, and we found out we couldn't get to the school. But, fortunately, the fire department, Sandy Hook Fire Department's nearby. They shuttled everyone in, including the kids, into the side door of the firehouse.
I was in the gym, and I heard like 7 loud booms. And the gym teachers told us to go in the corner. So we all huddled, and I kept hearing these booming noises.
Absolutely remarkable stories. Just 2 of them coming out of Newtown, Connecticut this afternoon from Port St. Lucie, Florida. Good Friday evening, everybody. Welcome to KC 60, a special edition of this program. And as most of you know, whenever something like this happens, I often do a program, and I felt absolutely that there was a need to do a program tonight based on the events that took place this morning in the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. I will start off by saying this, and that is that I was looking at Facebook when I woke up this morning, a little bit after I woke up this morning, and I saw a tweet from a former colleague of mine who is the sister of somebody I went to college with, and I found out very, very early on that somebody who I went to college with had 2 boys there in that school who were students. And luckily, both of the 2 kids, young guys, were both able to get out of the building unharmed. And I can't even begin to imagine or fathom what it's going to be like for these 2 kids who witnessed what happened during the carnage today. As difficult and as awful as it must be for all the parents who have kids who were lost today, it will be just perhaps as difficult for the parents who had kids who witnessed it and survived, and who had to see this madman come into their school and kill 20 children between the ages of 5 and 9, and 6 adults in the process. And I can't even imagine what my classmate is going through and her husband right now, right at this very moment at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. The kids are home. They've been home since this morning, but having to deal with the aftermath of this, and deal with speaking with the kids about it as to why something like this could happen, how it could happen. This is not a scenario that I don't think any parent would ever want to have to face, but it's one that many, many parents are facing right now. And very, very easily I can say this too, that it's days like this that when people say to me, how could you not want children? I think this is the type of day where it's easy to say, this is why I don't want children, and why I couldn't imagine being a father. Because it's every parent's nightmare, of course, to lose a child, but to have to go through such a traumatic thing like this, you send your kid off to kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade, and the children were killed by this psychotic mess of a human being from Newtown, Connecticut, who had a residence in Hoboken, New Jersey as well with his brother. Just an absolutely disgusting and terrible thing to happen. And you could tell right from the very beginning that it wasn't going to be anything to be encouraged about. Just from the get-go, you know. Of course, I've been talking for the last 5 minutes, and you're seeing these videos here, and I cut my audio off. My apologies, but Joel just came in to let me know that the audio wasn't working. I apologize for that. You should be able to hear me now. And the thing that what I was saying before is that it's just hard to fathom that 20 children are dead. 20, between the ages of 5 and 9. In addition to that, 6 adults as well. And this whole situation really hit me hard when I found out that my classmates' kids were there. It always becomes a little bit difficult or more traumatizing when you know somebody's been affected by this. But that notwithstanding, I don't know if there's ever been a worse situation in our country. And I would never want to make anybody think that Columbine or Virginia Tech were any less egregious as what happened today, but this is just simply so much more heinous because of the fact that the victims here were so damn young. You don't wake up, if you're a parent, and send your kids to kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, and expect that while you go to school, they're going to be shot. And that's precisely what happened here. And there's so many different ways to look at this. There's so many different aspects of this that it's going to take a while for me to get to all this. Joel's going to join me in a couple of minutes, too. And we're going to share some of our own opinions on this. And I don't want to try to put too much out there, but there's a couple of statistics that I want to bring to everyone's attention today. And I'm going to do this on the very day that these young children were killed. And I don't give a shit. And I said this on my Facebook page today, and I'll say it again today. If there's anybody out there who thinks it's too soon to talk about statistics with guns on a day like today, because if you don't bring it up on a day like today, it will never have the impact that it would on a regular day. And part of the reason that this shit continues to happen on a regular basis is because we continually, as a country, push it aside, and politicians will say, let's leave it for the next generation of politicians to handle. But I want you to listen to some statistics that explain this in a nutshell as to why I believe firmly that the gun laws in this country are despicable and unacceptable. In the United States of America, there are 314,936,000 residents, approximately. And in our country, there were 94,113 shootings up to today in the United States of America. 94,113. In the United Kingdom, our friends across the pond, where the population is approximately 70 million people, in the year 2012, thus far, there have been 39 shootings. 39, as opposed to 94,113. And if you take that on a ratio proportionately, that would be the equivalent of about 150 shootings here. Still remarkably and vastly different in the United States versus the United Kingdom, and that is because the politicians in that country came to a realization that guns are not necessary, and there are no gun issues there. And yet people say, and took to Facebook today, with that mantra that we hear so often when there are shootings in this country, that guns don't kill, people kill. Really. Guns don't kill, people kill. I am so sick and tired of hearing that guns don't kill, that people kill, that it's making my stomach turn right now just thinking about it. It's such an easy out. It's such an easy out. And I understand that this psycho, yes, I'm calling him psycho. I understand it's not the nicest word to use. I understand he had access to guns that were legally registered in the state of Connecticut, which is perfectly fine. But the truth of the matter is, it's just too damn easy here. It's just too damn easy. And if the death of 20 children isn't enough for people in this country to realize what a problem we have, nothing ever will. Nothing ever will. And so often, what you keep hearing over and over and over and over and over from people is that the forefathers of this country built this into the Constitution, the Second Amendment, because they understood how important it was for people to bear arms. Well, guess what, idiots? There were no police departments when the Constitution was formed. There were no butcher shops. There were no supermarkets where people went to get their meat. They had to hunt for their own meat. And there was a necessity for it. People needed to protect themselves back then because there was no protection. There weren't cops riding around on horses in the 1700s and the early 1800s. That wasn't the way it was. So, of course, it was necessary for men to bear arms when this country was founded. I just don't get why there are so many people in this day and age who are so vociferous and so insistent upon guns being okay in this country. Don't tell me, folks, that those 20 kids would have been killed today if this guy didn't have access to a gun. You tell me when it was the last time you heard. I understand that there have been stabbings in school. In fact, apparently, there was one in China recently where 20 kids got stabbed, but every single one of them survived. You tell me if this guy didn't have access to a gun, whether those kids would be dead today. The same thing going back a couple of days ago to Jovan Belcher. You think his girlfriend would be dead if he didn't have a gun? Bullshit, no. No chance. And yet we keep hearing excuse after excuse after excuse why we need to have guns in this country. And it's unfortunate because there are plenty of people, I am sure, who are responsible with their guns, who do the right things with their guns, who use them for hunting purposes and recreational use, target practice, as a sport. But far too many people have access to these guns who should not see them. Absolutely, entirely, too many people have access to guns who should not have them. In the United Kingdom, where there were 39 gun-related shootings in the entire year so far, and where the laws are strict, tell me why there aren't more. The simple answer is because the government does not allow it. I mean, for God's sake, the police don't even carry guns. And if somebody says, well, why don't they? It's pretty easy. For the most part, they don't need them. And yet, there will still be some who question whether there is a necessity to make the rules and the laws stricter. This is what we're up against, folks. This is our United States of America, and it is a mess. We live in a country where, as somebody posted on Twitter today and then on Facebook later, it's very interesting. When a man tried to light his shoe on fire because it had explosives while he was riding on an airplane in Detroit, Christmas of 2010 or 09, I can't remember. It immediately changed things, and every time you want to get on an airplane now, you take your shoes off before you get on a damn plane. But whenever there's carnage in a school and kids are killed, whether they're teenagers or now, as today, 5 to 9-year-olds, the excuse is, sorry, there's nothing we can do to fix this. Unbelievable that we live in a country that reacts to silly little things like shoes on an airplane. And yet, for some reason, when it comes to this, we can't do anything to fix the problem because it's guns. And the NRA has way too much fucking power. But this is our country. This is what we're up against. And because people are afraid to make decisions and talk about these things, I don't see it changing anytime soon. And that, my friends, is the most despicable part of this entire situation. It's 22 minutes past the hour. Knessa here with you on KCN60. There's so much more to get to. Joel's going to come in now, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things, I'm sure. He's got some very, very strong opinions on this, as do I. And a little bit later on, I'm going to play a video of Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas, who says that the reason this happened today is because we brought God out of schools. The man just doesn't get it. The man absolutely does not get it. So we'll talk about that. And I also want to talk a little bit about school shootings in general. This was not a case where bullying was a problem. It usually is, and there was, of course, a rumor earlier today that the reason this kid went into the school was because his child was being bullied, and that he wanted to gain revenge on the kids who bullied his child. Not the case at all. Not the case at all. But in general, that's quite a big problem. This whole bullying situation is just awful. And I do want to talk a little bit about that. Some of the experiences that I had as a teacher of seeing kids get bullied on a regular basis. So we'll talk about that at some point. But Joel's going to come in, and we're going to talk it up. So I don't know. He's standing at the door for some reason, and he's not coming in. I'm not. I don't know. Maybe I scared him. I don't know. Here comes Joel. No need to take a commercial break here, truthfully.
That's what I thought you were doing.
No. Nah.
I was waiting for it, to be honest with you. Cuts from the...
Your mic's off.
My mic's off. It should be on there.
Yeah.
I'm ready in air to be on the air. What's up? Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Incredible day today.
Unreal. I mean, what can you say? I mean, you look at what happened, tragedy, horror. I mean, there's no adjective that hasn't been said already and that people don't know about. And I think everyone knows and can understand that what happened was a tragedy. And and Kevin, and I don't mean to downplay what's going on, but how many times does something have to happen before it's not a tragedy anymore? I mean, this has happened so many times now. I mean, and I don't think people take it seriously. I mean, you saw this on Twitter, on social media. Anyone putting things and opinions about gun control now are just stupid, and they're underappreciating what happened to these kids. No. I can say that unequivocally. I do not downplay the loss of a child in any instance. And, you know, to say that we can't have our opinion, that an issue needs to be brought up, and the honest answer of this issue, and you were saying this, and I'm backing you 100%, and we need everyone's thunder to rain down on this, is gun control now. I appreciate the Second Amendment. Knesset, you make great points. When that was written, life was different. Now there's so many intangibles, from the accessibility of guns to gun shows, parking lot deals, to the it's cool to have a gun. It's glorified in gangster culture, in TV, in video games. Oh, I got an AK-47 with 100 clips in it. Yo, son, I'm cool. You know, it's a travesty. And that's really what needs to be looked at. And you hit the nail on the head. And a lot of people are downplaying this and saying it's inappropriate to talk about gun control right now.
Why is there a fascination with guns?
That's a good question.
Why, in popular culture especially?
Because people do damage with it. It's just, you know, I don't know. It's just, why, how can anything that violent be glorified? I mean, Kev, remember, how often do we see a gangland marathon on TV?
That's unbelievable. It's almost like 3 times a week, right? I mean,
you know,
yeah.
And the violence there, the cool guns, the easy accessibility to that. You know, cop dramas and other dramas, and every criminal is getting shot. And remember the big thing, Grand Theft Auto came out, and there was real violence in video games. And you know, who knows? Maybe there are that many people who can be, you know, persuaded of the mind that guns are cool, but I don't know why guns are cool. I don't know why it goes from the 50s culture to the greasers when you're watching, you know, John Travolta and them in Grease with fist fights, to saying that, yo, I'm going to carry a gun now.
Or perhaps even more intriguing, too, if you think about the progression of this. I was talking to some people I went to grammar school with, okay? Yeah. This is going back a couple, you know, many, many years ago. When we were in school, wasn't a problem. Then you started to see shootings in the workplace. Remember when the terminology was somebody went postal because there were all these shootings in post offices.
Mailman.
Then you get to this point now where it's all happening in schools on a regular basis. First it was Columbine. Well, no, not first. There were plenty of other shootings before that, but the biggest one that we saw, Virginia Tech a couple of years ago, and now this one. There's been a natural progression. Does that mean that there is something wrong somewhere where kids are just not being taught how important it is for this shit not to be an issue, that there's other ways of dealing with stressful issues than taking a gun?
Look at the ages of these kids. Remember the one you're not even mentioning, a lot of people forget, is the one in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Yep. The kid was 11 and 13. You know, this kid was 20. You know, very, like, who knows what these kids are being taught? Who knows? It's the age. It's not literally people who have been through life and can say, well, this is really What makes a guy 20 years old want to kill 5 to 9-year-olds? What makes an 11-year-old want to kill anyone? A 17? Who knows what got into these kids' head? When do you look at guns and see that they're cool? As soon as you see them on TV at 5 and 6 years old? Depending on where you live and where you're born, you could see it at 2 and 3 years old.
I saw guns when I was young, but they were cap guns. Let me ask you this. You remember cap guns?
Yeah, I remember cap guns.
Yeah, everybody
they had the orange thing.
Right,
and
the little,
pow, pow, pow. Yeah,
right, they look like little rounds of ammo that you'd put in. Okay. At any point in time, when you had one of those, did that ever make you want a real one, though?
No, I never wanted to kill. I knew what guns could do.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand. I think anyone who has a half of a brain knows that a gun is a gun. I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, only in certain circumstances do you think, I mean, these kids are they're not that stupid. They know how to shoot it, so they know what it's going to do. Call of Duty, Black Ops, the biggest selling video game of all times, glorifies violence, shows you multiple different guns. You know, so who knows, man? Who knows where it's to say what's going on? But, you know, to sit here and to say that we don't have a problem and to say that people who are talking about us not having a problem are just forgetting that kids died here, no. We know kids died. Why did the kids die? Because someone had a gun. Whether that was gun gained legally, illegally, way too easy access to a gun.
There are people who will say, again, I bring this up again, that it's humans who kill, not guns.
I'm tired of hearing that bullshit. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. That's bullshit. You know, Kevin brought up the example of, and someone put out there, well, I don't want to hear what type of weapon it was. It could have been an explosive, a knife. Rarely is someone going to stab 30 children. People with guns kill people with the gun. It's the bullet killing the people. It's cool because they saw it. Oh, look what it can do. They know it's the gun that kills the people. I don't care. I'm tired. Way too often have we been using that excuse. But now it's becoming second nature. Canessa, there was an instance tonight that we heard about a mass shooting that we had never heard about. It's becoming way too often, and it's soon not going to be called a tragedy.
It's going to be an everyday occurrence.
It is. And all because people are making that excuses, and the NRA has all this power, and the Second Amendment. Look, you want to have a gun, someone breaks into your house, I get it. Panic 911. The other night, Kevin and I someone of our friends told us about last night on Panic 911. The lady gave him 2 warning shots and then shot him. For those instances, I get it. I'm not saying that you got to take guns completely away, because we're never going to be Britain. It's never going to happen.
Why not?
Because it's just because of gangs. I think the gang violence, I think the ingrained culture of America will never, ever allow us to not have guns. Because of the fear about the doomsday preppers. Look at what some people have going on, and all the thoughts brought on by, you know, what could happen in America. Guns will never happen. Not having that, it will never happen again. It just won't.
All right, let me take this to a different level here. This is something that hasn't been discussed on TV that much tonight. If a person is capable of pulling a trigger and killing 20 children, and then some adults in the process, I would think the chances are pretty good that there was probably something mentally wrong with that person. Okay, right now, let me finish. Okay. With that said, is that a bigger issue then? That we don't pay enough attention to mental health issues, and that it's easier to obtain a gun in most states than it is help if you have mental health issues, if you don't have medical insurance? Talk about that a little bit.
Now, I think you bring up a great point, and I don't think that's being hit at all on any of the media markets, because all everyone keeps going back to is the fact that children died, and we know that, but we have to find out why. And you're right, mental illness is a big thing. I worked at a home for the mentally ill when I was a younger guy. I saw that unless you have insurance, unless you have money to take care of it, you don't see it. You know, people don't come out with it. And, you know, bipolar is, and, you know, people who have, you know, bad thoughts in their head, we don't look at it properly. They don't get the right treatment.
Let me preface this, too, by saying, too, that I have biological depression, so I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. And I want people to be aware of that, too. Yeah. Vinny's in the chat room saying he's got the same issue, okay? So we understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But I needed to make that point.
But that's good that you can admit it, and I think you being able to take the step and Vinny being able to take the step, if that got more into the forefront of America and what was going on, and to say, well, these guys who could admit it, it's not a big stigma, so what, I can't have a gun. Like, you know, the stigmatism of things need to get over. One time, you know, AIDS was a big taboo, right? Big taboo. You had AIDS, you were like, oh my God, don't touch me, this,
leprosy.
That. And that's what sometimes mental illness is now, is people don't want to face it, and people don't want to own up to the reality of it. You know, and if you're not owning up to saying, hey, I'm bipolar, then you can go out and say, I can get a gun. Because that one day, you might be in a great mood, and You know, so I think it's tough. I think, you know, it has to be looked at.
Somebody in the chat room going by the name of Really, I don't know who it is, but they're using the name Really, says the following. This is, again, the type of logic that I can't understand. If he wanted to wipe out 20 kids, he can run them down in a school crosswalk, for God's sake. I mean, you don't see those kinds of things happening.
No, really, exactly. Like his name says, really? That's not going to happen. That's not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is these mass murderers, suicidal, genocidal, guys who are cowards, who kill themselves in the end, these little fucking selfish bastards, can get their hands on guns. Point blank. That's the simple answer. It is it. There is no other explanation. If this kid wasn't able to get a gun, this shit would not have happened. It's simple. It's that. You could say I'm narrow-minded. You can say I don't give a shit. You can say I'm biased toward guns, and I am. And like I said, you get to the point of hearing guns don't kill people, that bullshit excuse. And when you see it happen way too often, it baffles you. It baffles you that no one thinks that we have a real issue.
What will it take? I got a call coming in, but I'm going to get back. We're not going to take it just yet. What will it take for the people who don't believe that there's a necessity for gun control to change their minds? Do they need to be shot?
Absolutely.
Do they need to see someone in their family get shot before they'll change their
Kev,
minds?
It's got to be the shock value. You bring it up greatly. A lot of people who aren't in Connecticut don't understand, who aren't part of that 2,000 people. The one-room schoolhouse. That's right. We remember that. The Amish schoolhouse. Jonesboro, Arkansas. If you weren't a part of it, you might not be able to understand it. But I think it's going to take something utterly shocking. There is going to be something that's going to happen, be it a school, albeit, maybe you'll see an attempt. How about maybe an attempt on an assassination on a political figure? It's going to take something massive for people to wake up. It's going to take 60, 70 people dead. Someone's going to do it. They have the firepower out there. What do you guys aren't waking up to this? I know of instances people going into parking lots and buying AK-47s for $300.
Talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I have a friend.
Tell the story.
There's a friend of mine who knows about gun shows, and there are gun shows quite often here in Florida. Now, if you already have a license, you can go in there. First off, you pay $20 at the door. They don't check your ID. There's cops walking all over the place. You can go in there. If you already have a license to carry a gun, you go in there, pay the money, boom, in, out with a gun. Now, if you dabble in, maybe assault rifles, you can go up there. There's a gentleman there who you may or may not know, who you may or may not have been told will be there. And you can go up to that gentleman and say, hey, I would like an AK-47. And do you know what he would say to you, Kevin?
Curious.
I'm curious, too, and I had no idea this really happens. Meet me in the parking lot in 10 minutes with cash. I will get you your gun. Now, in the parking lot, there are police officers in the parking lot. Police officers. And there is Billy Bob handing me, a normal guy, an AK-47 for $300.
What do you need an AK-47 for? What does anybody need one of those guns for?
Damage. That's plain and simple.
It's only to cause damage. There's nothing else.
I mean,
you don't need that to go get deer.
No. Can't we compromise with these gun people? I understand you want to carry guns, but limit the assault rifle sales. Limit the 100-clip magazines. You want to own a 9mm with 9 bullets in it? Fine. You want to hunt? Get a special permit for a hunting gun, and there you go. If you want to limit guns, then, and you want to compromise with everyone, and you want to say, let's be equal to the Second Amendment, then limit the type of guns that are out there. I don't think that's something too off-putting to ask for. You want to have a gun? Cool. But you can only have one that has 9 bullets in it, max. And you can only buy one gun a year, unless you're a hunter. A year.
How about in Florida, if you want to get a gun?
Why don't you tell them that?
Okay, this is very interesting. By the way, really, you're more than welcome here. I'm not sure if anybody is, if somebody's saying something to you that's making you feel uncomfortable, I apologize. Your opinions are welcome here, however misguided they are.
Of course.
But in the state of Florida, very, very simple. Very simple. You go to a gun shop. Let's say it's a Walmart. We'll use Walmart for the example.
Walmart, great example.
And you decide you want to buy a gun. You present the people or the clerk with $8. I think the licensing fee is $8.
Yep.
They check your they take your license for identification purposes, and then call your information into the State Division of Criminal Justice.
Right there.
You're approved or you're denied on the spot. 72 hours later, you take possession of that gun, and 72 hours after that, you can go back and get another.
Another gun.
Now, if you have been convicted of a felony, you are ineligible. If you have a history of domestic violence or mental health issues, I'm not sure how that's determined.
Yes, that's a good question.
You're denied too.
But how do you determine that? Is there a test that you say, hey, put a puzzle together, or hey, or do they just say, hey, are you crazy?
No, that's not the way it works.
So what? How do they determine if some? Well, you don't look like you should own a gun. I'm not gonna. It's not like you're walking in there with body armor on and a Jason mask saying, "Sell me a shotgun." Like, how do they determine that?
Right.
That is a big thing.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, and it's remarkable.
And I think we should know the answer. I think if people can get their hands on guns that easily, and if innocent kids not dying isn't enough of a shock value, then you should be kicked in your effing nuts. Because this event here should awaken everyone to seeing that, wow, people with guns can kill little kids.
Mike Huckabee is the former governor of Arkansas, and he made some comments today on Fox News that just blew my mind. You need to hear this. Okay? Everybody needs to hear this.
All right, let's hear this.
Mike Huckabee's answer to this is that the reason that these things happen is that people have taken Jesus Christ out of schools. And here's what he had to say. Take a listen. Folks, I'm going to take a quick break. I need to fix something real quick. When we come back, I want to have this video of Mike Huckabee. You're watching KC and 60 on DARPA. I almost said DARPA TV. Boy, talk about going back on
That's old school.
Yeah, fanforumnetwork.com. We'll be right back. Don't go away. We'll just get to this real quick.
Why? 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 Why?
It's 42 past the hour. I had this video of Huckabee and I deleted it. But basically what Huckabee was saying was that the reason that these shootings are happening is that we took Jesus Christ out of schools.
Everyone has an excuse on why this is or isn't happening.
Let's take this call.
Let's take this call.
What's up, Rob? Hello, Rob.
Jersey Rob, you're on the air.
Rob, you there? I don't understand why this always happens.
I don't know. I don't have my phone, so
Let me try calling him back. There's no reason for this.
But as you were saying, anyone who there's so many different excuses for it. You could say the gun control. You could say this. You could say that. But the simple fact of the matter is, children died. It's ringing now. I can hear it.
I'm trying to call him.
That works.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's
I'm
up?
having a hard time with your new thing on my laptop, but I have a 2-year-old. I'm holding her in my hand. She's got a Rudolph, and what this person did and doing today is absolutely a piece of trash. I mean, it just seems like we're seeing too much of this happening in our country from what the Chiefs play.
Anyone watching thinking?
Just ridiculous that this has happened. You ruined about 20 families' holiday season. They're never going to be the same again. My company had to cancel a meeting today because of this.
Why?
Shooting. Because it was just too sad to talk about business. It was just like we had a supervisor come down, and he just felt that it was just in bad taste with this happening, we had the radio on at our workplace today, and he just thought it was just not in the best interest to have a meeting about coffee.
Wow. Absolutely unbelievable.
It just hits home to everyone. Children, everyone who has kids, I can understand that. It devastates some people, but who do you blame, Rob? I mean, what about you? What side are you on? I mean, is this a gun control issue? I mean, how do you feel about that, you having children?
I think, I mean, if you get screened to have a gun, but who knows what you will do afterwards. You could pass a gun test and pass a mental health test, but who knows what you can do next. I think you know what it is too? I think a lot of people are snapping because of the economy, because they can't find jobs, money, and it's just taking it out on everybody too. I've seen, that's what I also believe too. And I see it out there being a route driver. I see people struggling.
Do you own a gun, Rob?
No, I don't.
Would you ever own a gun?
Because I'm afraid of them. I'm just afraid. My father hunted, and I never got into it. And I just don't think to kill. I just couldn't picture myself killing a deer, killing a duck or geese. I understand that's a sport, but I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't come grips to shooting it. It like the loud noise it makes. It just was one of those things.
Is there any circumstance under which you could see yourself buying a gun? I guess if you had to, if for protection maybe, for somebody breaking into houses, I can't, I don't know. I'm petrified of them.
It'd be tough.
I just am.
You got to be put in that situation. I mean, what about you, Kenneth? Would you ever own a gun?
I don't see any scenario where I ever would.
But think about what Rob said, though.
Honestly.
And this is what some people think about. If someone is breaking into your house, Kev, and there is a good chance that they have a gun and you don't, what do you do?
I still think the chances are better that they're not going to use that gun. A lot of times the average criminal won't use it. I mean, you have to really have a psychopathy to do it.
Joe, you might know who I'm talking about here. He was a safety for the University of Miami, and his house was broken in, but I know it was Sean Taylor. He went on to play for the Washington Redskins.
Yeah.
And I think he had a gun, but somebody managed to cut off his burglar alarm. He had a gun at his bedside, but still somebody shot him and killed him.
It's unbelievable. Sometimes those things happen. I mean,
I might be mistaken if that was true or not, but I do know that Sean Taylor. I know he played for the University of Miami. I know you're down there now, yep. Joe, and I know he went on to play for the Washington Redskins. Ironically, he was drafted in the same draft class. I mean, I know I'm going on, but with Ben Roethlisberger and Eli Manning. I know he was drafted in 2004 by the Redskins, and I think he owned a gun for protection.
I'm sure most of the NFL guys did do, but Kness was bringing up a point about the Jovan Belch. But 7 of these guys gave in their guns since then.
Rob, you're the parent of a 2-year-old right now too. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm glad Joel brought that up about these guys handing in the guns. It's sure there's a little bit of concern here. Okay, but now you're the father of a 2-year-old. She's 3 years younger than the youngest victim.
I agree.
I mean, come on here.
This is the other thing, Kevin. You're a school teacher. You were a school teacher.
Yeah.
How many 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds are going to sit there Monday morning and cry to their parents they don't want to go to school? Not just because they don't want to go to school, just because they don't like school. How many of them are going to not want to go to school for the fear that somebody's going to come in and do something there? How many of them are not going to want to go to school and not leave their parents' sight? And what do you tell the kids? Oh, you have to go.
Yeah.
How many stories are you going to hear about it on Monday morning? Not willing to get on the bus to go to school.
You're absolutely right.
And that's another thing.
Go ahead.
And it's not just the youngest person. It's going to be high school kids. It's going to be the middle school children that do not want to go to school on Monday now because of this.
And how could you blame anybody? How could you blame a mom who says, I'm not sending my kid to school today, right? I mean, could you, Rob, think about this. Think of your daughter if she were 4 or 5 years older than she is right now. Would you feel comfortable sending her back to a school where 20 of her classmates were killed? I mean, think about that.
I just couldn't imagine it. I mean, and she's out of daycare. My daughter's out of daycare. I have to, and actually the way I get in is I have a combination to get into the daycare on every day.
Lock your gates.
And so, so they're locked into a daycare. I mean, yeah, they do fire drills. They have the outside playground. So who's to say that somebody just comes in, climbs the fence, and does something there? I mean, the thing is, I hate saying this because I'm hoping that somebody doesn't get any freaking ideas, because this is what I also think a lot of times happens with these crimes too, is it's a copycat. Like you always say, the NFL is a copycat league. Or are we doing the copycat crimes? And that's the other thing, is I don't like throwing shit out there and for somebody to take my advice. I'm just, these are things that go through your head as a parent. Well, I can go in through the combo, but yeah, okay, now it's getting colder. But they go outside on the playground. Yeah, it's fenced off, but who down, cuckoo people sees a bunch of kids out there outside driving by. I mean, really.
You never know, Rob. It could just any tragedy could strike at any time.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, for ESPN, I was listening. I was just out for a few minutes before I came home, and they had ABC7 simulcast, but they went off, and a guy came on, and he said, this is a tough day for him. I mean, ironically, I think the tourists, especially in New York, I mean, I think this is even worse than what happened with the storm with Hurricane Sandy. I mean, the first worst has got to be an ESPN. If you remember, Kevin, ESPN Radio premiered in 2001, like a week before the 9/11 tragedy.
Yep.
So, if you think about the short-lived of ESPN Radio out in New York, I mean, today's number 2. The Hurricane Sandy is nowhere near close to what happened today. And I know this is recent history, and I was part of that, too.
Rob, I want to ask you a question about that today. And I'll be honest that at one point, out of curiosity, and Joel doesn't even know this, I turned on Mike Francesa today. And Mike was dedicated his entire show to discussing this. Talk about that a little bit. I thought that was remarkable, especially considering that very well I'm not a big fan of Mike Francesa's.
Yeah, I mean, but what was he supposed to do? I mean, you're going to talk about the Giants playing the Falcons, getting a number 1 or a number 2 seed. I mean, because that's basic. I mean, I'm just saying that's the game. I mean, he's not talking. I mean, the Jets possibly winning. He's not bringing up the Steelers in a Cowboy game that has meaningful playoff implications. And he put that all aside today on a day where he does get his better ratings on a Football Friday too.
So was it the fair thing to do? I mean, or should he have, or do you think, like, in cases like this, and this is, Joel and I were talking about this earlier, like, what do you do when there's a tragedy like this if you're a sports host? Do you keep the outlet open so that people can get this off their minds, or did he do the right thing by switching the format today for maybe just one day?
You know what? I'm sure. I don't know if it was his call or management's call.
Probably his, Rob.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he had a. I guess he. You know what? I remember him saying after 9/11 he was on and Russo wasn't that day. I remember listening to him, and I think the thing is that he had callers call in and said, you made me feel comfortable listening to you, almost like a friend driving home. And then, granted, and that's how some people would feel. Like, you feel comfortable listening to somebody who maybe talks sports but can actually talk about some of these issues that might be happening because they trust him, and maybe because they feel he's a friend. If you know what I'm saying, like they feel like he's a guy on the radio, you could tune to him.
Yep.
Absolutely remarkable. Yes.
That, and that's like when I was just listening. Now it's not 1050. It's 98.7. ESPN in New York did not have their host on. They had ABC7's feed on the radio today.
Right thing to do.
8 o'clock.
Was that the right thing to do too?
I think what I mean. I think they felt like it was a tragedy, and I guess they felt like what we need to provide this information to the audience, and did away with their programming. Michael Kay was not on the air today. Stephen A. Smith was not on the air today.
Wow, that really drives it home about how serious this is. I mean,
yeah.
When you think about it too, Rob, you just mentioned it yourself, Joel. You'd probably know this too, that on 9/11/01 for about 2 or 3 days, all the sports stations broke off and did simulcasting, except for Imus and Mike, who did their shows, you know. So that demonstrates the severity of this. Very little will get sports stations to do this, and this is exactly what happens. I think they did the right thing, too. I really do. And
I mean, Mike Francesa did around 6 o'clock do his pro picks.
Right, for 6 to 6:20, though. I mean, that was 20 minutes, right, Rob?
Yeah, and I think because of the sponsorship that PC Richard, I don't know if he. I mean, again, I really sometimes don't really listen to him that much, based on the fact, I mean, with work or my picking up my daughter. You know, I think like Colin Toward would say, you know, most people like me listen to the radio and are doing other things at the same time. We listen to like part of the show. We don't listen to the whole show.
Right, but of course that's because you're a big fan of Sid Rosenberg's, right, Rob?
That's right.
You like Sid anyway.
You know what? Unfortunately, because of my job and because of what I have not heard. And I hate to say this, because I really miss Sid. I haven't even heard any of his shows or what he does at his new radio station down there in, I guess